Well, welcome to Epworth in Action. I'm your host, Pastor Steve Taylor. I'm the associate pastor here at Epworth United Methodist Church, and we're kind of doing things a little bit different for this program. With me, I have the senior pastor at Epworth, and that's Reverend Scott Canada. We're kind of going to have a little fun tonight. We're going to kind of interview each other a little bit and have conversations here about how church has been going on since the COVID-19 crisis hit. It's been different for every church, folks, let me tell you. And it's something very much out of the norm. And then we're going to find out a little bit about each other, I think, as the program goes on. But Scott, I know, starting off, let's talk about church as a whole. Churches have been suffering a little bit with the COVID-19 outbreak. We're not able to have people in our churches. How's that affected us here at Epworth?
Yeah. So in terms of, well, I mean, it could go a lot of different directions. One, it's just hard to not be connected to each other.
Right.
We separated from one another. I know people, that's the thing I hear most, is that people just really miss being with each other and seeing one another. The supports we build in a Sunday school class are over a lifetime. I mean, there are people who've been in Sunday school classes together for 30, 40 years. And that kind of relationship, people miss. I mean, they miss, and because it is very much, it's not just a friendship. There's a spiritual connection that we share, and it's just deep. And so that's the thing I think most people miss, most of us miss, are those relationships.
Right, and then we get into the point where we have technology available to be able to do Zoom Bible studies and Zoom Sunday school classes, but not everybody's into that.
Right, and even those who are doing it, if you do it for work and you do it for Sunday school, or you do it for a few different things, and you just kind of get a little tired of always being on the computer too.
Right.
Someone described it as kind of screen fatigue that people are getting, and that can happen too. We just are affected in a lot of ways. Sunday morning for worship, that we've tried to keep that essential connection that we have between us and God, and hopefully we know that kind of connection we share throughout the congregation.
It's like when you and I get up to lead worship on Sunday morning and we have an empty sanctuary.
That's pretty different.
It kind of makes us feel empty a little bit as well, at least me anyway. I mean, we've had something unique happen here at Epworth. We've had some ladies of our church go around and put different names of people where they normally sit.
And that's been a real helpful thing.
Right.
And just because you think about the people who are there, and we know through responses on Facebook, and folks that call in, that those of you who are connected in those ways, when we see your name out there, we know, that we feel that connection also. But that first Sunday, I got to tell you, that first Sunday was
tough.
It was pretty unbelievable to, I'm starting my 8th year as the pastor here, and so for 7 years. You come into that sanctuary, and even though we're not the most vocal congregation in terms of response, there's a smile of recognition. There are participations that let you know you've connected in some way.
Facial responses.
That's right, and so to not have that. That first week was a little difficult. I think I've kind of found a little bit of a rhythm. Steve said he was going to want to move out to the congregation because I keep glancing over at him on TV.
I'm thinking like he's preaching to me, just me,
Yeah.
But and we've always had that connection. We've never had this happen before. We've had cancellation of church because of weather and things like that. But for this prolonged of a time.
Right.
And it's taken its toll on our church as well as other churches too.
Yeah.
In many different aspects, and financially is one of them.
Right. That's a really good point. And there's no one who's alive who remembers any time like this. And what we know from history in the church, I don't know of a period where for months church was not able to happen throughout church history. So it really is something that's quite different. Financially, one of the things, I mean, as a congregation, members have been incredibly faithful.
Right.
We have some members, who send their check in regularly. Some who've made arrangements with their bank to do automatic check withdrawals. So those checks, contributions are coming in just on a consistent basis. Others have stopped by and said, "I just want to catch up my contributions," and we'll write a check to catch that up. But we are, what I've been able to tell in conversations with pastors, United Methodist pastors across Oklahoma, is that most churches their giving is down by about 20%. I don't think ours is down quite that much. But it is down some. Also, our expenses are down a little bit simply because of not using the building and having less utility costs.
Right.
One of the things that I just think was very good is that the federal government provided the PPP program, the Payroll Protection Program, and so small businesses were able, and as a church we qualified for that, to apply for what initially is a loan, and then at the close of it, that part that goes to direct salary support can be offered up as a grant. And that's really been a help to bridge that gap for the congregation, for Epworth Church, and make sure that all employees continue to get paid, and that we do that in a way that doesn't cause suffering in the life of the church either. Right. But the place where it really is most beneficial is with the daycare.
The day school.
Yeah, the day school. It runs on such a tight budget that just a few weeks closed down means that there's not money to pay checks. And so that program's allowed us to keep teachers that we were closed for 1 month, and they were able to continue to receive their salary, which takes the stress off of their families. They're able then to return as they are now, and we're in this month, and May has been kind of a ramping up month where we've had that support, so we didn't have to worry about payroll. But kids and families could, at first it was, like a little less than half of enrollment, and it's begun to kind of build its way up, which has allowed us to have more distancing and safety in the daycare.
Well, and also the fact of, even though a day school is considered an essential business, a daycare is essential business, we thought it was best for the health and welfare of our teachers and the kids to shut down April.
Right. Yeah, and we've really been everybody's been learning as we go.
Yeah.
And so to close down for that. Also, we had dropped down to under 20% of our enrollment were actually in attendance during the month, or during the month prior at the end of March. So in April, we had parents who were like, we're not sure our kids will even be here. Therefore, we're not going to be making the contribution or pay for child care for the month.
Home,
and they were at home. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's been interesting to see how it's developed and how we are relaunching a little bit and getting back into worship. We are probably one of the few churches that have waited compared to some others.
But in town, although when you look across the spectrum, there are some congregations who began to worship already. There are others that are going to wait even maybe months before they get back together. We're looking at June 14th being the Sunday when we do that. We're going to start with just worship only. As things move forward, we'll begin to add Sunday school and other group activities, but we'll begin with worship only. We're not going to sing when we worship. That feels pretty different.
Yeah, it will.
We won't have congregational singing, but one of the things we found is that even in just the week or two prior to the shutdown, there were congregations where through singing, multiple members had been exposed and then tested positive to the virus. In fact, the United Methodist congregations in Oklahoma where that happened.
Right.
And so we won't be doing singing just to make sure we're protecting people.
And even while we're coming back together in somewhat limited fashion, because we are blocking off every other pew, doing the social distancing, having masks and all that.
Right.
We're also watching the COVID numbers as
We
well.
are.
We have to.
Yeah, we watch the daily numbers that are coming out through the state of both of, of all different things, but of new cases, of deaths that happen per day. We're watching closely our community, what those numbers are in Grady County, and along with listening to the guidelines and direction comes from the CDC, the governor's office, the annual conference of the United Methodist Church. Really, we're trying to do this in a way that is as safe as possible.
Yeah.
And I would rather, my personal feeling is I would rather start a week or two late than a week or two too early.
Right, right. And we have been so blessed here at Epworth because of our technology. I mean, the foresight of this church 20 to 30, even 40 years ago, when they started the channel on the cable, and now we've kind of moved into the web stream and Facebook Live, but we were already in position, which is what I found amazing, where some churches just were not prepared for this.
Right.
But we were, and that's just because of our congregation.
Yeah, and Epworth has done a great job of supporting the television ministry. We now refer to it as media ministries because television is one part of what we do. Yeah, but it has moved into an online presence through, as you know, YouTube and Facebook Live, and you were really pivotal in helping us get to that place.
Which is where we were going next, because a lot of people don't know about me.
Right.
I've been here, 3-4 years now?
That's right.
And so I was actually recruited to come here by my predecessor who held the media position here. And it was just been God's blessing for me to be here. And I love it. And I wasn't even a pastor when I came back here.
Right.
It was some prompting of somebody, and higher up from him, that got me back into ministry. I was in for 8 years before, and then got out for a while, and then came back.
And I think your story is it's a really interesting one, and I think people should understand, the avenues that there are for entry into ministry, but when you were early in your career, you were not thinking about ministry. But what areas were you working in?
I was in radio for 20 years, broadcast radio and television, which why I came here for the media part. I did that after I got out of high school, went to school for it, and ended up going to school for 2 years and was just in the industry for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And then kind of moved around. My wife was also involved in television and media, and so she kind of moved with her position. I kind of was the good husband who followed a little bit, and so ended up in Ada, Oklahoma, which is when I found my calling, I guess, or God sought me out to become a pastor. And a little church southwest of Ada, a little church called Fitzhugh United Methodist Church. And I was there for 8 years as part-time. Yeah. As like I am here, I was a part-time minister here. And then I went back to school, finished my degree, and lo and behold, next thing I know, I'm in southwest Oklahoma in the Marlow area in Lawton. And then my wife was working in Chickasha.
Right.
And I thought, I just don't see us moving to Chickasha. And God has an amazing way of lining things up for you when He wants you to be somewhere, and He made 6 or 7 things fall in line for me to be able to be here. So don't ever doubt that if God wants something to happen, it's going to happen, folks. Yeah. Trust me. It happened with me, and I've been blessed ever since.
And it's really kind of, it's God's leading and crafting, that I think helps lead people into the right place at the right time.
Absolutely. And my wife came home one day after our youngest daughter graduated from high school. She goes, I'm tired of driving to Chickasha every day from Marlow. You drive all over the state anyway, because I have a full-time job.
Right.
I work for a gas company, for CenterPoint Energy, the gas company. You drive all over the state, we're moving to Chickasha. And my only response was, yes, ma'am. What can you say?
Yeah.
And so that led us here. And so I just, it's God's way of making things line up.
Right. I had a seminary professor who, Jim Fowler's his name, and he'd written a book on our vocation and how we experience calling in our lives. And it was really designed for both clergy and for laity, because I think laity have a calling in what they do.
Absolutely.
And what he said was that where the needs of the world and the gifts of our lives meet, there we find God's calling. And I think that's particularly true for you, that where the needs of this world and this community and this church were, and the gifts of your life and a background in media work,
Right.
With the calling in ministry, having spent time as a pastor, all really kind of led to this coming together.
It was one of those things I mentioned, in fact, on last week's program. I said, God's blessed each person with some talents. And if you let those talents go to waste, it's just wrong. I mean, if he's blessed you with music, sing or play an instrument. If he's blessed, like he's blessed me with talent of technology, and I have to use it. I mean, that's what God's called me to do, I believe.
Yeah. And another way that where God was working to prep us for this moment was that Jim Winslow,
Right.
Before they'd moved back to Tulsa, he and I were talking, and he was just a strong advocate for us looking at how we move the television ministry to an online presence. Now, he didn't know the particulars of how to do that. He just knew that this felt like a way that God might be leading us. And so he began to ask those questions. And so we began to look. And so early on in our conversations, we talked about how we enable that to happen.
And surprisingly, we were able to accomplish the online presence fairly quickly.
We did.
Because a lot of the equipment that we needed was already present. They had the foresight to think about that.
Right.
And so it's just a matter of a few weeks or a month since on my arrival that we did our first online presence on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And then it was probably a year later we started the simulcast on Facebook Live too.
Yeah.
So it's been amazing how God's led us in this direction.
It is.
We're preachers, we're pastors, but we're not television pastors.
Right.
But we're preachers and pastors who just happen to be on TV.
Yeah. And
there's a difference.
Absolutely. And the thing that and I don't want to say that God left out other people, but I do know that a lot of our colleagues have been scrambling to try to find ways to get online, to have their worship services be present to their congregations at home, and that's a way where we've been able to help benefit several congregations, you particularly, and offering up resources that we have as a church and your skill together to help other churches get to that place.
Right. And that's what God calls us to do, to be in community with each other.
Yeah.
So it's been a blessing that way. Anything else? What about? I haven't asked you any questions. You've asked me.
We've gone back and forth. I've had plenty of time to talk. I don't usually miss out. But the last thing I think about, though, is as we begin to move forward and worshiping, some of you are going to feel a little anxious about coming back just now.
Right.
And I think people ought to be okay about that. No, I mean, if you don't feel comfortable being back yet, continue to worship at home. That's going to be important. In fact, if you are in one of those categories, either by health or by age that put you in a vulnerable place, the best thing you can do is to protect yourself. And even though we're going to take precautions, we're going to do everything as safely as we possibly can. It'll be best for you to choose to worship from home for a little while.
Let those numbers come down.
Yeah. We're asking that everybody, we're not asking, we're expecting that everyone will wear a mask in coming to be in the sanctuary for worship.
And that's going to be different for people.
It will be. It really
us.
will be. Because our numbers have been low, and what we've been doing on Sunday morning, because we haven't had a congregation, those that were up there leading, we haven't been wearing the masks. But what we'll be doing is once if we're not speaking or singing, playing an instrument in a role of leadership, then we're going to be wearing our mask. When we do those kind of things, we'll take them off to be able to do it. So we'll still have music. You can, if you're at home, you can still sing along from home. But we'll still have music that'll be a part of that. The praise band will be leading it. It's just though if you're in the congregation, you're not going to be able to sing along, just to protect everyone.
They can hum along.
Yeah.
Or sing lightly.
Yeah. And the other thing this week, we've had a couple of members of our congregation who've tested positive for the COVID virus, and so it kind of really hitting home a bit, and just reminds us about how protective we need to be of one another.
We can't let up.
Yeah,
can't let up at this point. Any words of encouragement that you can pass along other than what we talked about so far?
Now I'm on the spot.
Now you're on the spot.
Yeah, I think that during this time, the most important thing we can do is to remain connected and celebrate the ways that ministries emerged in this time. We've had people in the congregation who've started putting together baked goods and delivering to members of the church and to the firefighters and folks in the community. Right. We've had people who are calling their Sunday school classes. And we've had Sunday school class that meets for Zoom on Sunday mornings. Steve stepped up with the Bible study.
Got a Bible study.
And that's been online. There are important ways that we've stayed connected, and we just want to celebrate those who've done that. Want to encourage you to reach out to your friends in the life of the church, to check in to see that they're doing okay, but also in doing so, you're helping take care of yourself, so that we keep connected to one another and spiritually connected to God. Invite and have a time just where you sit down and in your prayer life where you sit down maybe with a cup of coffee and just share with Jesus over the table. Absolutely. What's going on in your life, how you're feeling, and I think those are important things for us today.
And the main thing, even though you might feel like you're alone, you're not. We're with you as well.
Yeah.
With you as well. I'd like to thank you for joining us for Epworth in Action. Reminder that this program has its initial debut airing on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock on our YouTube channel, as well as Facebook Live and on Channel 6 on Suddenlink Cable. And it's repeated throughout the week on Suddenlink Cable, and you can go hit the download anytime on YouTube as well, or go back to our Facebook page and go back to a past episode. Folks, we'd like to thank you for joining us for Epworth in Action tonight, and we just want you to stay positive. There's light at the end of the tunnel, and that you're not alone. Have a blessed night.